Welcome to the South Point YZ250F Hot Cam Installation Guide, Step 1. Begin by removing the seat and the fuel tank. Make sure the fuel petcock is in the off position before removing the fuel hose from the carburetor, and be prepared to catch any overflow gasoline that may still be in the fuel line. Remove both of the hose clamps from the valve cover using your hands or a pair of pliers. There are two hoses that connect to the valve cover. With the hose clamps removed, you can then remove the hoses from the valve cover using a screwdriver and your hands. You may need to gently pry on the hoses to break them free. Now, remove the two valve cover bolts with an Allen wrench or socket. Once the bolts are removed, gently lift the valve cover off the engine with your hands. The next step is to remove the flywheel bolt cover and the flywheel timing inspection hole cover with a large flat blade screwdriver. Be careful not to damage the head of the plastic covers with the screwdriver. Using a 17mm socket, rotate the crankshaft until the top dead center, or TDC, alignment mark appears in the inspection window on the flywheel cover. This removes pressure on the lifters and the cam chain. Check that the cam lobes are not pushing against either the intake or the exhaust cam lifters. They should be pointing in a sideways orientation. If not, rotate the crankshaft again, 360 degrees, until it is lined up on the TDC mark. The engine is now at the TDC mark on the compression stroke. Loosen the cam chain tensioner bolts, alternating from side to side a little on each bolt until the tensioner is completely free. Then, carefully remove the cam chain tensioner assembly from the cylinder. Using a cross-hatch incremental pattern, remove the intake cam cover bolts. With the cam cover bolts removed, gently break the cam cover loose with a screwdriver or your hands. Don't forget to remove the cam bearing clip. Carefully remove the intake cam from the engine and allow the timing chain to hang from the exhaust cam. Now, remove the exhaust cam cover bolts using a cross-hatch incremental pattern. With the cover bolts removed, hang the timing chain from the frame with a piece of wire or string. Be careful not to let the timing chain fall into the engine. Loosen and remove the exhaust cam cover, prying gently if necessary to break it loose from the head assembly. Remove both the cam cover and the bearing retaining clip, then carefully remove the exhaust cam while allowing the timing chain to hang from the frame. Now you are ready to remove the cam lifters using a magnet or other suitable tool. Be careful not to scratch or damage the lifters on removal. Frequently, the shims will stick to the underside of the lifters, so be careful not to drop a shim into the engine. Shims that are stuck can be easily extracted with a magnet. With the shim in hand, measure the thickness using a good quality caliper or micrometer, and then record the measurements for later use. You must repeat this measurement for each shim and lifter combination. The YZ250F has 5 lifters and 5 shims, 3 for the intake cam and 2 for the exhaust. Replace each lifter into the head using a generous amount of assembly lube. Clean the top of the lifters and apply a generous amount of assembly lube to the top of each lifter and also to the cam carrier supports where the cam makes contact with the head. You must lubricate this contact area to avoid engine damage at startup. Apply assembly lube to the cam journals where they make contact with the head assembly. Lubricate the end of the exhaust cam in and around the decompressor assembly. Now, install the exhaust cam with your hands. Keep the cam alignment marks at the 9 and 12 o'clock positions as you work the cam onto the chain. Try not to pull on the cam chain while installing the exhaust cam. If necessary, you can lift the exhaust cam up slightly and rotate it one tooth at a time, until the alignment marks are at the 9 and 12 o'clock positions. When the exhaust cam is in place, verify again that the crankshaft is still in alignment and the TDC mark is still centered in the inspection window on the flywheel cover. In a similar fashion, now install the intake cam. There are 3 timing marks on the intake cam, at the 9, 12, and 3 o'clock positions. Carefully work the timing chain onto the cam without pulling on the chain. Make certain that the chain is fully installed onto both cams, and that the cams are seated properly in the engine head on the carriers. Again, verify that the intake cam alignment marks are at the 9, 12, and 3 o'clock positions, and also that the exhaust cam and crankshaft remain in alignment. Before installing the cam covers, apply additional assembly lube to the cam covers and the top of both cams where they make contact. Do not forget to install the cam bearing retainer clips before installing the cam covers. It may require a bit of downforce to allow the cam covers to seat properly. Now, repeat the process for the intake cam. Reinstall the cam cover bolts in a cross-hatch incremental pattern as before. Tighten down the cam cover bolts using a good quality torque wrench to 7.2 foot-pounds, again using a cross-hatch pattern. Finally, you will need to measure each of the valve clearances for all 5 valves. Measuring and adjusting the valve clearance, or lash, will be covered in Step 2 of this South Point installation guide.